So I said I would make some political videos, and I do want to do that. I was hesitant at first, just because I'm going to be expressing partisan views, points of view. I don't want to. I don't want to think of politics that way. I think that everyone has opinions about what's going on, and everyone has solutions in their heads that make sense to them. And there are people much smarter and people with much more education than them who hold either the same opinions or different opinions. So I don't think that anyone's opinion necessarily is is not valid. But at the same time, me, as just me personally, I see a lot of problems with what's happening with the new, with our new president and with the new legislature. I heard Congressman Ron Paul on the radio the other day, or last week, I think, and he was speaking of the nearly $1 trillion stimulus package, and I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about stimulus packages and bailouts and everything the federal government has been doing to buy out banks and failing institutions. And that's just the first concept right there, like high school economics. Why would you subsidize a failing institution? If a company is providing a service and they're practicing poor business practices, right? They're providing poor services and people aren't paying for them. People aren't buying their services. Or they mess up financially or with their organization, right? Maybe their products are okay, but internally, operationally, they're horrible, okay? If they fail, then they're bad at what they do. And someone else will come along and fix that hole that they were doing. So if a business is failing, and it's losing money, they're going to want to change something so they can make money again, whether it's improve their product or improve their internal operations or whatever it is. Improve their business practices so they can make money again and provide better services to the people. Because if the business keeps failing, then a different institution will either come along and provide a similar service that other people will buy because it's better and cheaper, or people just won't pay for that service and they'll go with a competitor. So if you subsidize, if you give money to a failing institution, what incentive do they have to change their business practices? I don't understand that. And not to mention it's theft. Because the federal government is taking my money and your money if you pay taxes and giving it to failing institutions. I don't want my money going to that. I mean, I know that the federal government has the power for direct taxation. Like, that's fine. Okay, it's 16th Amendment. I get it. There's some controversy over it. If it were up to me, I would abolish it just because that's how conservative I am. But how much time do I have? Oh, I'm only 3 minutes in. So I heard Congressman Ron Paul on the radio the other morning. And he said he was speaking with his colleagues in Congress talking about the stimulus package. And he was like, we've gone through this before. George Bush put out a stimulus package where people got some money back from their taxes, like their tax returns. And we already had that, $700 billion bailout that didn't work, didn't seem to help because, government bureaucrats are the best people to organize and distribute funds to all these failing institutions. And guess what? Nothing happened. It didn't work. Some people might argue that the credit market stayed open. So that $700 billion allowed people to use their credit cards. But is more debt what we need to solve the problem? Really? Do we really need to fund credit markets so people can start using more credit? I mean, that's not sound, and that's not going to improve our economy if everything is just based on debt. And that's what I don't understand. So Ron Paul asked the same question to one of his colleagues. He said, If $1 trillion is going to work to bail out these institutions and create jobs, why not 2 trillion? And the guy he was speaking to, which he didn't name, he said, you know what? That's a really good idea. Let's do $2 trillion. And Ron Paul was like, oh, you know, who am I working with? Who am I speaking to? And that's a fundamental problem I see. But the federal government getting involved in these businesses. It's like, oh, we're in a recession. We need to do everything to keep this recession from happening or to improve it right away. But all the federal government can do is print and borrow. Generate more dollars and borrow more money. The former leads to borrow more money, print more dollars, borrow more money. The former leads to inflation, the latter leads to debt. Okay? If you generate more dollars, you inflate the currency. You have more of something that's not backed. And therefore prices rise. Inflation in Austrian terms, in Austrian economics, if anyone wants to learn about this, I'd recommend this book. It's called Economics for Real People, An Introduction to the Austrian School. Gene Callahan. It's from the Mises Institute. And the Austrian School of Economics, these guys, Peter Schiff, I think is one of them, have predicted every single major economic disaster that has happened based on these simple principles of the federal government not borrowing and printing its way out of every problem. Germany wasn't, bumped my microphone. Wasn't Germany the classic example of hyperinflation? So it's the Austrian term. Inflation is just inflating the currency. You have more dollars, they're worth less, you can't buy as much with them, prices go up. And borrowing it leads to our national debt. So that's what I don't understand. How does that fix the problem? How does that solve the problem? How has the previous stimulus helped? Government doing nothing would help better. If the housing markets are failing because people cannot pay back their loans on their homes, the market is already filling that hole. I listen to the radio on my way to work and school. Well, I live near campus now, so I don't have that much of a drive. And I hear ads for home foreclosures. Hey, you want to buy this? You want to buy that? You can buy home foreclosures for really, really cheap. The market is already fixing that hole. No, now government has to step in and help people buy their houses that they can't afford, that they're in debt with. When people, they can't pay back their house, they're not homeless. They just lose the house they bought in, and they have to buy something they can afford, not something they can't afford. Poor business practices with banks, and poor consumer decisions. The government does not need to get involved. We're going to destroy the currency if the government keeps nationalizing everything, which is what they're doing. Which is why I'm so unhappy with Barack Obama and the new legislature. It's why I wasn't happy with George Bush, the end of his term, when he started supporting this stuff. Where did this come from? I thought you were conservative. I thought you were Mr. Conservative. Compassionate conservative, I think, is what he used. The last thing I want to speak of, which I have not much time, is Barack Obama wants to limit CEO pay to $500,000 for all businesses that receive these national funds. I see that as another barrier for these businesses to succeed. Firstly, I already said there's no incentive to do better if they can just receive government money. Nextly, there is such thing as a CEO market. Ben & Jerry's tried this. Okay, you can't limit your CEO pay and say, okay, this company A, CEOs are only going to make $500,000, and you're not going to get very good candidates to be CEOs because other CEOs are going to be expected to pay more. It's just like you. When you go job hunting, you're going to try and get paid the most amount you can that accurately reflects your productivity. So these failing institutions that receive government money, they're now going to get shitty CEOs. I'm sorry, I don't mean to really cuss on YouTube. Think about that stuff. And maybe I don't. This is just the way I see it. I would love to see other responses to this and see how other people do see it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.